Hey everyone and welcome. Today, we're going to go on a mission to solve one of the biggest, most frustrating mysteries in the English language. Ghost letters. You know, those silent letters that just seem to haunt our spelling. So let's get into it and crack this code together.
I mean, this is the question, right? It's the one that drives anyone learning English absolutely nuts. You see a letter, you think you're supposed to say it, but nope, silence. So why are they even there? It feels totally random, but I promise you, there's a method to the madness.
I mean, just look at these guys. The silent K in night, the P in psychology, the B in debt and subtle. They're everywhere, just lurking. It can be super confusing, I get it, but by the end of this, you're going to see these words not as weird puzzles, but as little clues to a much bigger story.
And here it is, the big secret. Silent letters aren't just lazy letters taking up space. No way. They're actually hard at work. Think of them as history detectives, sound changers, and meaning clarifiers. They all have a job to do.
So these letters really have three main jobs. First, they can totally change a vowel sound. Think about how that silent E turns mad into made. It's magic. Second, they're like little fossils that show a word's history. That silent B in debt, it points all the way back to its Latin root, debitum. And third, they help us tell words apart. So we don't mix up a hole in the ground with the whole pizza. It's all about adding clarity.
All right, now for the really fun part. We are about to become linguistic code breakers. We're going to start decoding the most common patterns so you can spot these silent letters out in the wild and just pronounce words with way more confidence. Let's kick things off with the most powerful tool in the whole silent letter toolkit, the magic E. You can see it right here. When you pop an E on the end of a word, it can completely transform the vowel sound. So cap, with that short A sound, becomes cape with a long A sound. That little silent E actually reaches back over the consonant and makes the vowel say its name. It is probably the most common code you'll see, and it's surprisingly consistent. Okay, let's move on to our first group of patterns, which I like to call the silent starters. First up, we've got KN, and you know what? The rule here is beautifully simple. When you see KN at the start of a word, just pretend that K isn't even there. Just start with the N sound. And you see this pattern everywhere, right? It's not no, it's just no. Not K-knife, but knife. And think of words like knee, knock, and night. And here's that history function we talked about. This is so cool. Hundreds of years ago, in Old English, people actually pronounced that K sound. And hey, here's our next silent starter, W. The logic here is exactly the same as KN. So when you see this pair at the beginning of a word, that W is basically invisible, or at least inaudible. You just ignore it and go straight for the R sound.
Just like we see here, right, wrong, rap, wrist, wrote. You don't say right, you just say right. It's another one of those historical leftovers that makes spelling a little tricky, but the pronunciation is a piece of cake once you know the rule. Simple, right?
Okay, let's switch gears. We're moving from the start of the word to the end with our quiet endings. Our first one is the MB combination. The rule, if a word ends in MB, that B goes completely silent. It's like a little whisper you just don't hear.
Think about it. You use a comb for your hair, not a comba. A baby sheep is a lamb, not a lamba. Thumb, climb, bomb. In every single one of these, that B is just for looks. It's a little historical clue to the word's past. And here's its partner in crime, the M ending. You guessed it, the rule is just as simple. When you see MN at the very end of a word, that N just decides to take a vacation. It's seen, but it's definitely not heard.
Now this pattern might be a little less common, but it's just as consistent. Just think of the season autumn, or a structural column, or a serious moment being solemn. In each case, you just stop right at that M sound. That N is completely silent, another ghost from the word's Latin roots. All right, time for a new category, and this one is pretty fascinating. I call them the vowel guardians. These are the silent letters that protect or change the vowel sound that comes right before them. The classic example is GH. After a vowel, it usually just goes silent, but its presence is a big clue that the vowel sound is long. Look at these. Night, light, high. The GH is totally silent, and that I sound is long. But, and you knew there had to be a but, right? Sometimes GH decides to throw us a curveball and sound like an F, like in cough or enough. So it's a guardian with a bit of a split personality. Just a little reminder of how sounds can change over centuries.
Our next vowel guardian is the U in goo. Now, this silent U has a very specific job. It stands right next to the G to make sure the G keeps its hard G sound. This is especially important before vowels like E or I, which would normally make the G soft, like a J sound.
You can really see it in action here. Without that silent U, guess might sound like Jess. That U is basically a silent bodyguard for the G in words like guess, guitar, and guide. It makes sure the pronunciation stays on track.
Okay, so we've cracked a bunch of codes. Now, let's put it all together into a handy, practical toolkit that you can start using, like, right now to finally master these ghost letters.
Here are your key takeaways, all on one slide. Remember the magic E, dropping that first letter in K and W, the quiet B after M, and the tricky GH. And here's a pro tip. Look for related words. The G in sign is silent, but you can totally hear it in signature. That's the history clue right there, showing you that the ghost is still hanging around. And to make this even easier, here are 3 quick tips. First, practice chunking. In your head, just see the word knife as knife. Break it down. Second, really focus on the vowel sound before the silent letter, because that's often where the action is. And finally, when in doubt, just use a dictionary app with audio. Seriously, it's your best friend.
Now, after all those nice, neat rules, we have to admit something. English absolutely loves to break its own rules. So let's take a moment to appreciate a few of the most famous, unforgettable oddballs. These are the words you just kind of have to memorize. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Oddball Hall of Fame. Seriously, where does the R sound in Colonel even come from? Why do we just skip half the letters in Wednesday? And how in the world does yacht make that sound? Or what about the silent C in indict? Don't even try to find a rule here. Just appreciate their beautiful weirdness. These words are true originals, and knowing them is like a badge of honor for any English speaker.
So at the end of the day, silent letters aren't just random mistakes. They are literally echoes of history, and they're guides to pronunciation. Now that you know the code, reading kind of becomes a treasure hunt. The next time you see one of these words, you won't be confused. You'll be a decoder. So what ghost letter are you going to spot first?